Hello, I'm Darren Magee, and today's topic is continuing on with questions around recovering from having been in an unhealthy relationship with someone who's narcissistic, and indeed managing those relationships. Today I'm going to discuss what's often referred to as the grey rock method. I'm going to look at where it came from, how it works, but I'm also going to discuss some of the risks involved in using this method. So if you like this video, if you find it interesting or helpful, please consider subscribing to my channel. But just as a reminder, this video is not a substitute for support from a mental health professional, nor is it a tool to be used to diagnose someone. Now, the term grey rock was first coined by a mental health blogger named Skylar back on her website back in 2012. In an article she'd written, she referred to having a conversation with a stranger one night and telling them about the abuse she had been suffering from an ex-partner that she had identified as being narcissistic and toxic. The stranger's advice was to be boring. So you think of a rock, you think of a grey rock. It's not that interesting. Can you think of anything more boring? It's dull. You can't train it to perform tricks. You can't debate or argue with it. It never moves. It won't let you borrow money. You could pour water over it. The water just runs off. It might get wet, but it doesn't absorb the water. In other words, to go grey rock is to make yourself so uninteresting, so unresponsive, the narcissistic person just goes elsewhere for their supply. And it has become quite a popular strategy for managing toxic people whenever no contact is not an option. For example, you might have to co-parent with them, you might have to live with them, you might have to work with them. It's that person who's always looking for or trying to provoke some kind of a reaction. They are crossing boundaries emotionally and mentally draining their targets. The non-responsive, non-resistance, non-engagement approach is aimed to make it more difficult for the narcissistic person to project onto their targets. It puts a distance emotionally, mentally, even sometimes physically between that person and the narcissist. It works on different levels and people can employ different approaches. Some people might start to dress more plainly or perhaps in a way that just blends in with others. They share no information, certainly not personal information with the toxic person. And remembering that a lot of narcissistic people like to create drama, grey rock is a way of not taking part in any of that chaos and tragedy. So the person who's employing grey rock, they may observe the drama, but they just go back to whatever it is they're doing. They don't engage. Now that can be difficult, especially if you're the target. But the idea is not to give the narcissistic person any energy or indeed anything that they can use to twist or manipulate. To make the narcissistic person feel so starved of reaction and control, they just lose interest and move on. Now that narcissistic person could be an ex-partner, but there has to be contact of some kind, perhaps because they have children together. So the ex-partner is constantly trying to provoke some kind of reaction, maybe in front of the kids or others, trying to induce conversations to create some kind of conflict to control and manipulate. Or it could be a work colleague who is continually undermining someone, continually undermining you, perhaps in quite passive-aggressive ways that, on the face of it, don't seem that unreasonable to others. But if you're on the wrong end of it, you recognize the pattern, you recognize the intent. Again, they may try to induce conversations, asking leading questions, looking for a particular answer that they can use against you later on. So how it works is, the narcissistic person accuses, there's no answer. They give the silent treatment, there's no acknowledgement of that silent treatment. They ask a question and if possible they get a one-word answer. There's no explanations, no opinions, there's no sharing of plans for the weekend, what movie should sing, there's nothing. The narcissistic person gets nothing. Now the success rate of using the grey rock method is to date anecdotal. I think it can be useful. One word or brief answers like yes, no, maybe, I don't know can help keep that emotional distance. Not colluding with their lies in front of others, not reacting to their concerns, their issues, their unkind humour, again, especially in front of others. Using a matter-of-fact tone of voice and deciding for yourself whether or not to answer a text or an email, and it doesn't really matter if they have seen you've read it or not. Answering it is your choice. When they're not getting what they want, you're managing your boundaries, you're not being manipulated, you're keeping a sense of control over yourself. And that can be quite empowering. The downside of using grey rock can be, if you remember, a common trait of narcissism can be vindictiveness. So if there has been a relationship where they were used to getting what they want, they generally don't want to lose that. So they tend to try different tactics, sometimes more extreme, sometimes more ridiculous ways of trying to get some kind of reaction from you. And you may face a lot of accusations. You may be accused of ghosting, ignoring them. They may show other people texts and emails to you that normally begin something along the lines of, I've no idea what I've done to hurt you, to deserve this kind of treatment. Can we at least talk about it? They're playing the victim and they're trying to make you look like you're the unreasonable one. Also, if there has been physical abuse in that relationship, grey rock probably isn't going to be enough. You may have to remove yourself completely from their company, from that environment altogether. Another downside could be sometimes there may be a genuine concern. Maybe that narcissistic person really has been diagnosed with some terrible illness. Maybe they really are genuinely concerned about the kids. Maybe in their own minds they really do believe that last act of kindness has just undone all the crap that they put you through. I tend to think of that, it's like that old "the boy who cried wolf" scenario. They've just done so much, they've behaved so badly, told so many lies. It's hard to believe them, it's hard to take them seriously. Another thing to be mindful of when using the grey rock method is when using it, we're not expressing ourselves the way we would wish to. Sometimes what we're doing is we're suppressing outrage, embarrassment, the need for some kind of validation, not just from the narcissistic person, but often from their audience as well. There can be a risk of becoming alienated from your real, true self. So, being so traumatized from the abuse that the grey rock almost becomes like a default setting, behaving like that with everyone, becoming withdrawn, disconnected from those who even really do genuinely care and want to support you. The thing is, and I often talk about this when I'm talking with my clients, when we're talking about coping strategies, it's knowing when, how, and why to use them. Coping strategies aren't there to make the problem go away. Coping strategies are there to help us get through it, maybe dilute it a little bit, to help us to manage the situation better. And it is okay to get it wrong from time to time, especially when we're trying something for the first time. It's okay to learn by trial and error. We never really learn anything unless we make mistakes. And I think this is where counselling and psychotherapy can help with this. Help someone develop assertiveness and not necessarily suppressing their own needs and wants. Also helping someone to develop and draw on supportive, healthy, caring relationships with others. Learning to build on what works and learning to rule out what doesn't. Learning when to use certain coping strategies and when not to. So that's a brief outline of the grey rock method. Now, if you have any comments, observations, or experiences that you feel free to share, please by all means go ahead, use the comment box below. There are some interesting conversations starting around these videos. But if you liked this video, if you found it useful or helpful, please consider subscribing to my channel for future updates on mental health related topics. And until next time, thanks for watching.